No, wait a second. I thought
James Wan and Lee Wan L.
created this.
And I'm stealing it. I'm taking it back for the black man to make up for all the that you motherfuckers are taking from us.
Spiral from the Book of Saw is the new Saw movie, which is the brainchild of comedian Chris Rock. This is the second sort of soft reboot after the franchise ran itself into the ground, and it is officially the second worst Saw movie right after the masterpiece that is Saw 3D. So I'm just gonna get straight to the point of what the hell this movie is. I think this is the first Saw movie that was made that wasn't just a milk on a successful franchise. This franchise has been dead for a while, and even the most recent Jigsaw sequel failed at bringing any new life back into this. But the way this came about was, a few years ago, Chris Rock walked into the studios of Lionsgate or Twisted Pictures and said, I have a new idea for a Saw movie, can we make it? And Twisted Pictures, not having any hit at all since probably the first Saw movie, was just like, sure, let's do it. I think Chris Rock just made mention that he was a massive fan of the Saw franchise ever since the first one, and he had a new idea for a new film. Now, straight away that news sounds like the most confusing thing ever. Why would him of all people want to make a movie in this series? And so for the past 2 years I've remained optimistic enough. Even when they released the name, Spiral from the Book of Saw. What? There's a Book of Saw now? Spoiler alert, there is no Book of Saw in this movie. Just like in Blair Witch 2, there is no Book of Shadows. I don't understand what the whole book thing is and not having them. Maybe it's because people don't read books anymore. And so how did this movie fare? This movie may be one of the worst things I've ever seen.
What are we waiting for? Action!
First of all, I can't help but unsee this as purely being Chris Rock's vanity movie. I just feel like he's getting on in life, he ain't that young spry comedian anymore, and now he wants to pull a Steven Seagal and be like, yeah, I'm gonna get into the horror action movie cop genre, show my serious acting chops. We'll get into how this is a Saw sequel in a minute, but my god, the first act of this movie is the most cliche, by the books, obvious 80s cop movie you will ever see if you haven't already bought a copy of my film Lieutenant Jangles, because I think Chris Rock made an even more obvious parody of 80s cop movies than we did. This movie doesn't fail to hit every single cliche. Probably gonna hear me doing the South Park cop drama voice for a lot of this, because that's seriously what the movie is.
Listen, Mitchell, I put my life on the line every day. How dare you accuse me?
Doing my job, Frank. We have to know where that evidence was shipped.
Your job is to protect the men who serve this force.
Maybe you're forgetting who you're talking to.
Then maybe you're forgetting I used to be a captain.
Yeah? You used to be a lot of things. That's it, I've had enough of this. Don't you turn your back on me, you.
I said enough!
This movie starts off with Chris Rock's a hard-hitting cop that doesn't play by the rules. Oh, you're on thin ice, Chris Rock. You're gonna have to be put in line. We're setting you up with a rookie. He's in training, and he's gonna be a new partner. And he goes, I don't want a new partner. And he's like, too bad. You're gonna have to take him out on the streets, show him the ropes. And then Chris Rock's like, I don't want a rookie partner. I don't like you. So we're gonna have a car ride, and I'm gonna give you shit. And by the end of the car ride, we're gonna bond a bit. And so then it sort of becomes a Saw movie. They go investigate some traps, and then they find out that it's cops that are the ones getting jigsawed, and Chris Rock's like, I can't trust anyone. I can't trust anyone in this department because everyone stabbed me in the back. And everyone's like, ooh, we don't want that Chris Rock. We want him out of this precinct so we can be greased up crooked cops again, but he's the one blowing our cover. And what starts the story in motion is one of the cops in the precinct gets jigsawed, and then Chris Rock's like, I'm the one that's gonna take this case, and like, no, we're gonna give it to the other cops. He's like, nah, this is my case. I was first on the scene. And they're like, fine, you got the case. And his dad is Samuel Jackson, and he lives in the same apartment building as him. And so his introduction is he breaks in to his apartment, and they have a little exchange, and he's just like, come on, son, hang out with your father more. I used to be the chief of police or whatever, so why don't you come up to my place and we'll get takeout and we'll go over the case together. Which I don't know if retired cops can go over current cases, but I don't know police things.
Jigsaw copycat.
This is gonna go sideways fast.
I really don't like Samuel Jackson's casting in this movie because he is too much of a specific celebrity to put into this type of franchise. But that being said, he is the best part of this movie. Best meaning you enjoy watching him, not best meaning he's the best part of the plot or any of the mechanics of this movie. This movie is chock-a-block filled with just flashbacks, mostly just to reiterate something that happened earlier. But there's some flashbacks to when Samuel Jackson was chief of police, or he was still head honcho at this department, and Chris Rock was a young young up-and-comer, and the way they make Chris Rock look younger is by giving him a backwards cap, which, oh my god, is this the best. But there is a flashback where it just cuts to Chris Rock's already been shot in the stomach, and he's like on the ground, and Samuel Jackson, he is just yelling at all the cops around Chris Rock's body lying on the ground, where he's just like, "You pieces of shit, my son took a bullet for you, but you'd never take one for him." It's just an outright comedy, which doesn't help the movie.
You wanna play games, motherfucker?
And the whole reason I say that this feels like a gigantic Chris Rock vanity project, because I couldn't help but unsee The Room while watching this. But people like Steven Seagal or Tommy Wiseau or Neil Breen think of themselves as like, yeah, I can just write myself my own action movie and I can be an action hero movie man. But they kind of just don't realize they're not actually built for that role. But Chris Rock has really written himself just to be like the generic cop hero, like a Mel Gibson or a Danny Glover, despite the fact that he's Chris Rock.
They're targeting cops. That was just a diversion to get us out of the precinct. I need everyone on this case. If there's nobody on the force, I can trust.
But I guess we should get into what his original pitch for this Saw movie was. And I was wondering, what is Chris Rock's pitch? If he's the one that really wanted to tell a story in the Saw franchise, what is his idea? And it just turns out that what his idea is, someone starts jigsawing cops who are crooked to clean up the precinct. And that's it. This literally connects to nothing from the Saw universe. There's like a photo of John Kramer floating around, and all these people are like, "Oh, do you reckon it's John Kramer? Nah, this is just another copycat." And it's literally someone, I'm pretty sure it's Chris Rock, goes, "Nah, John Kramer never targeted cops. He targeted junkies and stuff like that." Despite the fact that he targeted a lot of police. Like, he tried to jigsaw Danny Glover and Eric Matthews, and Hoffman was sawed at one point, but then he became a new apprentice at Jigsaw. And something that I now know is set in stone, if any time they try to make one of these Saw soft reboots, none of them will mention or even use as a plot device the cult of Saw as seen at the end of Saw 3D. That movie established that fucking everyone on the planets are now a Jigsaw apprentice. They're all punishing ungrateful people in the name of John Kramer. That was such a dumb idea in that movie, and now it's like, yeah, 2 soft reboots later and none of them are even gonna touch that. And it's literally that. A cop gets kidnapped, put into a trap, they fail the trap, and then they send some item to Chris Rock to be like, "Hey, check this out, more people from your department are getting killed off because they're crooked." And the only reason it's Saw is because they do things like the first guy has his tongue stuck in this wire trap. And it's either rip his tongue out or get hit by a train, and the moral of the thing is he lied in court, so they're gonna get rid of his deceptive tongue, which told lies. And some other guy like shot a kid who was not armed, and he's like, "Gonna have to cut off your fingers in order to live, the fingers that wrongly dealt justice." And then it just happens, and then happens, and it happens, then spoiler alert, I don't give a shit. The villain is the Rookie. Never would I have assumed the most obvious thing would be like, oh, maybe it's Chris Rock's new partner. Because not only do we not know anything about any of these characters, because this isn't a sequel at all, really. The only reason he's a jigsawer and he's kind of doing this for Chris Rock is that when he was a kid, this other cop who was Chris Rock's partner shot his dad and then it orphaned him. When he gives his big speech at the end, he has to like literally roll through, "You don't know how hard it was to study at the police academy and make sure to get to your specific department." What? Like, that's the plot twist? I wish I could say more about the plot in general. It's the most cliche by the books cop movie, specifically from the 80s. But in terms of a Saw movie, it's just weak sauce as well. Like, the traps are kind of underwhelming. It really doesn't matter what traps they do now, because any Saw movie now is officially been there, done that. Another thing that piqued my interest about this movie, which turned out to be completely deceptive, is this movie dug out Darren Lynn Bousman, the director of Saw 2, 3, and 4. And it's like, oh, aside from James Wan, they're getting the other director of this franchise who like was there at the beginning and directed a lot of the good stuff in the early days of Saw. Nah, somehow he lost his way of making a Saw movie, so he's made a terrible Saw movie. So much of this movie is just make everything orange and just add in rap music. The only thing this movie was missing in terms of the cop genre is that Chris Rock's character didn't quit halfway through, go out on his own to find out who the killer is, saves the day, and by the end of it, the chief is just like, "Goddamn, you're a maverick, Chris Rock. You don't play by the rules. You're unpredictable, you're dangerous. But by God, if you're not the best goddamn cop I've ever seen," and then gives him his badge back. I'm actually disappointed they didn't fulfill the quota of cliches for the cop genre. But in terms of a continuation of Saw, this is just nothing. The news of this kind of kickstarted Lionsgate and Twisted Pictures' interest in making another Saw, so that they're waiting to announce a Saw 10. Mark my words, this movie is gonna bomb. No one will like this movie. I do not recommend recommend this movie at all. I honestly just say just stick to Saw 1 to 3 and then be done with it. So yeah, this is very unscripted, this is very raw and ranty, but that's because 500 years ago I teased making a gigantic retrospective on the whole Saw franchise called The Rise and Fall of Saw. That got heavily delayed because I kind of got distracted and like different projects kind of came to light. But now I kind of really want to get back to that documentary. This movie was kind of the holdout. I knew what my stance from Saw 1 to Jigsaw was, and with this new movie coming out, kind of changed the roster of that, where I was like, wait a minute, is Chris Rock gonna save the Saw franchise? Is he gonna make my title of The Rise and Fall of Saw redundant? Nah, Spiral from the Book of Saw is very much still falling, and all it can do is just fall more. This is the most over-milked horror movie franchise, I think, in history. And this is the thing, they're not ballsy enough to fucking go to space like Jason or Hellraiser or Leprechaun. The next time I ever get into more depth about this movie will be for my big Saw retrospective documentary that'll be made at some point. But if you want to join my Patreon, and then you can stay updated for when this Saw documentary eventually comes to light, because this has re-sparked my whole interest to get back into that. Go join Patreon, support me there. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my rant. Look forward to the Ouija ripoff universe, which is currently in development, and I'll see you all next time. Toodles!